The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there, it's James Leckie. Welcome to the 18.1 release walkthrough. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's great to see that we've got over 63 attendees today. It should be a great session. Sorry, just first apologies, we took a bit longer with this release than we expected, but hopefully what you see today will obviously reflect the time that we took to get this ready for you. As always, there's a lot more under the hood going on that we've worked on. We've refactored a lot of the system and done a lot of work to make the system more performant and more stable. It's always those things that go unnoticed, but they are an important part of what we do at Alaris, and they make sure that our system continues to evolve. So there's been a lot of that work that won't obviously get showcased today, but I always want to give credit to the developers who worked hard on a lot of the underlying systems as well. Just to quickly go over our session today, we're going to be firstly starting off with a walkthrough that's going to go for approximately 30 minutes. Following that, we'll do a Q&A session, so feel free to ask your questions during the webinar. They will go into our little questions area at the bottom there, and at the end of the session we'll read through those and answer any questions that are on topic. Please do make sure that your questions are on topic. We want to make sure that we're focusing on what we've released today. But if you do have new features or other things that you would like us to talk about, by all means go into our online forums and discuss those new features in there. We're always in there to, I guess, listen to those new features on the online forums. So looking at the timeline for the release, obviously that's a pretty important thing to know about. We'll be releasing the beta tomorrow. So tomorrow all of the dev servers will be upgraded to the latest version, 18.1. So you can expect to have access to this release as of tomorrow. That will go out automatically to all dev servers. There's no extra work for you to do there. It'll just be available for you to start testing. Do make sure you spend the time to log into that instance, check any custom work, templates or other items that might be specific to your instance, just to make sure that you've got everything that is custom to your instance checked over and it's ready to go when we go gold. We're expecting to go gold in 1 month from now, around the beginning of November. So it should be the perfect time for you to get your upgrades done over the summer holidays. So you should be able to get all of that done ready for the new year. We might even sneak in another release before the end of the summer holidays because we love working over the summer holidays. But we expect at least this release to be available from around about the 5th or 6th November. Obviously that's not confirmed. If we do run into any significant issues during the beta period, we'll obviously delay that. We don't want to release not ready software. So obviously it'll come down to how we're feeling about that closer to that November date. But if everything's looking good and everything's running smoothly, you can expect this to be gold around the start of November. All right, so let's get started in our walkthrough today. We're going to start with having a look at the admin system and having a look at what is possible with the new system. I'll just log in as a super user just to get started. So we'll go straight in and have a look at what is available. So here we can see in the admin system, not a lot's changed. It's pretty much as it was, but a few things just to cover off from a super user perspective before I go any further. In July, we turned everyone over to HTTPS everywhere. So from now on, all Schoolbox traffic will be fully encrypted and secured. We've done that obviously to increase the security of your instances. But along with that, now that that change has been implemented with version 18.1, we've enabled all links within Schoolbox to be via HTTPS, and all cookies will also only work over HTTPS. This means that any emails or other external links that point to your Schoolbox instance are now pointing to the HTTPS version. However, this does not mean you can just turn off port 80 or HTTP on your server. We still need that port open. Funnily enough, we need it open so that we can install HTTPS certificates. It's pretty ironic, but yes, we need an unsecured port to be able to install the secure certificate. Next up, let's have a look at some of the changes we've made for users. Firstly, you'll notice we have added a service permissions area. This is to give you insight into what permissions you've handed out across all of the users, so you can quickly see what service permissions have been set. Looking here, I can see that we have a housemaster, news, and I can of course drill down into all of these permissions and see exactly who has what permissions in the system. So you can expect to see the permissions that are defined across all of your different users. While I'm talking about that, obviously you can set multiple service permissions, but one of the limitations we previously had was the ability to set only one admin per group. So we can actually now go into the resources area, and in our groups we can actually set up multiple admins to a group. So previously there was a limitation of one admin, and we did that because we wanted to make sure that there's only one person in charge. But we've now seen far more complicated groups being set up where there might be multiple admins or assistants. So we've added the ability now for you to have multiple admins per group. So no longer is that restriction there. One of the other things that admins have always asked us about is the ability to publish the user provisioning system on their own. So in the past, this system has run automatically in the background. So the system has been able to every night update the users and maintain those users. But of course, when you're making changes in here and you want to push those changes live immediately, you weren't able to do it. You had to wait for that run to go through, or you had to contact support to get us to run it. Now there's a perform live update which will send off the signal to run that update and get that all running for you. So now you'll be able to see that change happen almost immediately. A live run typically takes around 8 minutes. And when it does finish, you will get a notification popping up in your feed to tell you that it's completed. Of course, the log will also be visible, just like with the dry run. Works exactly the same, but of course, rather than the dry run just being a dry, no changes made, the live run will actually make changes. So please make sure that when you run this, you're absolutely positive that it will work and that it will do what you expect. So make sure that you do a dry run first. And once you're confident with that dry run, you can then run that live run. It is very important because this can create non-reversible actions. It can remove people from groups and so on. So it is important to make sure that you have it all correct before you do run that. Okay. Next up, just quickly, I'm going to have a look at the pastoral care system. We have added some new features to pastoral care. And I'll just look up a student here. Actually, I could have just gone through the top nav. So what we've done for the pastoral care is added some new options to the report builder. So when you're building a report, you now have some additional options here. Firstly, you've got the ability to search on year levels and houses. So previously they weren't available. Okay. We've also added the ability to filter on subtypes. So those options are now available as well. So you can filter on both the types and those subtypes as well. All right. One thing that is a part of the provisioning process that is often overlooked is the provisioning of staff to our online help and documentation system. We wanted to make this process a bit easier. Previously, schools have been sending us spreadsheets to add into the help system, and we wanted to automate that process. So the Schoolbox Help provisioning system will now allow you to automatically push accounts into our help system and provision those accounts automatically. Now, it's currently not running. That's because we actually need to upgrade help as well. So our instance of help needs to be running 18.1 and so does your instance as well for this to all work. Once of course they're all upgraded, you'll be able to see which accounts have been provisioned, which accounts haven't been provisioned. You'll also be able to get a list of courses that have been set up for you inside help and who's been enrolled in those courses. So you'll have insight into what information's been defined inside help for your school, and you'll be also able to manage that, so be able to push new staff into that list. So when your staff get inducted into the school, it'll be easier now to provision those accounts automatically into help and set them up inside courses. So that shouldn't require any extra work or support requests any longer. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to be talking about today is going to be the news system. Now, while I'm in the admin area, I may as well quickly have a look at some of the settings that you can configure with the new news system. We've centralized the news system into its own tab in the admin system, bringing all of the config options about the news system into one place. Here you're able to see who's currently a moderator for the news system. So these are the people that are going to be obviously controlling the news and making sure that it's getting posted and forwarded. We can see what staff are allowed to do with the news system. So we currently have allow staff to modify news, which is going to allow staff to modify other users' news, in fact. So it's going to allow them to go in and edit news that's been posted to a class page that's perhaps not owned by them. That's a policy setting. Traditionally, you can only edit news that is your own, but with this turned on, you can actually go and edit news that is, you have right access to the page it's posted on. So it gives you access to other news that you may not directly own. Allow staff to post to all non-folder audiences. This allows staff to actually post to all audiences that are outside of a home page. So when I talk a bit about the types of audiences we have later, this option allows staff to post to all those audiences. So if you want staff to post to campuses or to houses, you turn this on and that will enable those staff, all staff in fact, to be able to post. If you want to control the set of people who can post to those audiences, you can of course set news read access. So you can go and assign individual users just to have write access, and they will have, just those staff will be able to post news to those audiences. So you can restrict the set of people who can post to all audiences, or you can allow all staff to post to all audiences. Expiry date, publish date, there's prior and existing already controls, but global moderation is a new control. This will enable the moderation functionality within Schoolbox, allowing you to moderate news before it is posted to the news platform. So we'll talk a bit more about that, but turning this on and off will allow you to turn on that functionality. By default, that functionality will come off. So when you install 18.1, it will actually be in the off setting. So if you want moderation, you'll need to go and turn that on following the installation of this update. Of course, once you turn it on, it will combine with the allow staff to post all non-folder audiences to allow all staff to post to all audiences, but allow only moderators to forward those onto those audiences. If you only want certain people to be able to post to all audiences, you can turn this off and still use the moderation functionality, but only with a limited set of individually defined users. And then finally, you can turn moderation off and just have no staff posting to no audiences except moderators, or you can turn it on and have all staff posting to all audiences, no moderation, just a free-for-all. So there's lots of flexibility there with what options you use to get the right policy setting for your news publishing workflow. Just one nice thing that we've added here, read more link for long articles. You can of course now customize the text for how you want that read more link to appear, whether you just want to say read more or whether you want to have nothing. You can customize what it says at the end of the article. Okay, that about sums up the news settings. We'll now move in and have a look at just general settings around the system that you probably should be aware of. Nothing too exciting, but let's just quickly run through some of the new settings that are available. Under third-party services, we have a new setting called Rubicon Atlas API token. Now this is a token you'll need to retrieve from your Rubicon Atlas installation. If you have Rubicon Atlas, this API token will be available from them, and you copy this into Schoolbox, and it will allow Schoolbox to connect to your Rubicon Atlas securely. So once you've installed that token, this will enable the Rubicon Atlas functionality. So until you have this token installed in Schoolbox, you won't be able to use that Rubicon Atlas functionality. And we'll talk a bit about that in just a moment. But just so you're aware, that needs to be done first before any of that will work. One setting that came actually during 18, but it probably didn't get the announcement that it deserved. We now have the ability to turn attendance flags on in the attendance system. So if you want to be able to see, and this is specific to Synergetic customers, if you want to be able to see the attendance flags that show up in the Synergetic attendance marking screen, you can now turn those on via this setting here. It's available in LMS policies. I'll probably move that because it's not quite the right place, but be aware that there is attendance flag setting. So that allows you to see things like medical alerts, incidents, critical things that are flagged in Synergetic on the attendance marking screen. Obviously, I'm always hesitant about that because it could potentially expose private information via the attendance screen, but it is something that a lot of schools have asked for and said is part of their duty of care, that all teachers see those flags on a daily basis. So we've now enabled them so you can see them on the attendance screen. So go ahead and turn that on if that's something you're interested in. Okay, one more feature that I'm going to be talking about today is the course markbook. Now, the course markbook is a Pro-only feature, but it is turned on and controlled via this setting in the modules area. You can turn that on and enable that feature. By default, it's going to come on for all Pro Plus customers. It'll be obviously off for basic customers, but it will come on by default. If you don't like it or you don't want it or it's not appropriate, you can turn that setting off via here. But I'll talk through how that all works in just a moment. Now, finally, one other thing, and probably the first thing I'll probably show, is we can now configure assessments to show up on the grades card. And the way that's done is via the work types. So when you're setting up the system and you're configuring the work types within your system, you're now able to highlight particular assessment tasks that you want to show on the grade summary page. Now, traditionally, we've had two pages. You've had the grade summary page, and then you have the grades page. And the grades page is for the class, and it shows all of the grades for that class. The grade summary page just showed the overall mark and the list of classes that you were doing. This now allows you to bring those assessment tasks onto that grade summary page, and I'll show you what that looks like. So let's just save that, turn on assessment task, and save that. I'm going to log in as a parent and have a look at what this does for the parent. So under grades for a student, now when I click on the grades, I not just get a list of subjects, but I get a list of subjects and their assessment tasks. So all of those assessment tasks have come through with their marks, and I can see all of that feedback that's been provided by teachers for those assessment tasks. Now, you could use this on your major assessment tasks or some other type of major assessment that you really want to give priority to over all of the other formative assessments that you're doing, and it will bring them all the way up to the summative grade card, so you can see it all in one page. All the classes and all of those major assessment tasks all in one page. No longer clicking down into those class pages. Of course, if you do drill down, all of that data is still available. The graphs and everything is all still there. All of the extra detail is still available. But just for those major assessment tasks, for those teachers, parents that just want to get a quick view, you can bring them up to here and see just those information. While I'm here, you'll also notice that this assessment task has a View More Feedback link. We got some feedback in the forums that perhaps it wasn't clear that there was a rubric behind this assessment task and there was more information to see. So we've added a View More Feedback to encourage parents and students to click through and get that rich rubric feedback that we all love. So hopefully that'll encourage them to click through deeper into those assessment items and see that rubric. Okay, so let's back out now and head in as a teacher and have a look at this new news experience that we've created and how it affects the teachers. So refactoring the news was a pretty major project for us. The news system is actually the oldest code base in Schoolbox. It's been around for about 15 years now. It's certainly done, you know, its duty. It's been there for a long time, and we wanted to really refresh that whole design. We set out with a few goals that we wanted to achieve with the news system. Firstly, we wanted to build a single news platform which could be extended and take on most of the new concepts that we wanted to introduce now and also in the future. So we wanted something that was really extensible and could continue to evolve over time. And we wanted it to allow us to integrate sort of features like likes, comments, shares, save for later, all of these sort of new modern social media type features. We wanted to make sure our news platform could you know, take those features and absorb them into that platform. And also we wanted to give greater insight into your engagement. So we wanted to be able to capture statistics on who was reading news, what they were doing with the news, all of that type of information that currently you couldn't really get without an external analytics product. We wanted to bring that into Schoolbox. So we had quite a lot of goals that we set out to achieve, and one of the reasons why we've taken so long. And now we haven't built all of those things in day one, but we hopefully have built a platform that's going to allow us to easily add those things over time and extend it. So firstly, by merging the news system, so we merged homepage news and school news. So no longer is there two separate news systems. That's obviously going to help us a lot because when we build a feature, it'll apply to both systems. So you'll be able to get, you know, all the features we build for the news system in both areas, whether it's homepage news or in school news. It also makes it a bit simpler for people because we only have one news system. There's only one place to post news, and you can really choose the audience that you want to choose it, you send it to. So what does this all mean? Firstly, a few things. By merging the news sources, it means that all your news from across the school all comes now into the one dashboard component. So all the news, whether it's posted in your groups, your classes, no matter where it's posted, it's all going to feed into your dashboard. And as a user, it'll also all feed into my news button up here. So every news item, no matter who the audience is going to appear in the one place. So you don't have to go hunting around many pages finding that news item. It will all appear in the one feed. So all news in one location. But of course, it still wants to be relevant. So we still have to make sure that only the news that's relevant to you is coming to you. So that's where we use all of that audiencing functionality, the group management, to target that news to specifically the people that it's relevant to. So let's have a look at what we've done with audiencing. I'm going to create a new news article here. So I'm going to specify my first news post. Now when I get down to the audiencing here, I've got my body, feature image, all the same stuff that was there before. But when we get to audiencing, it's changed a bit. Previously this was a whole range of different text boxes, tick boxes that you could tick, and you know, you could put some combinations together. Now we just have this input box and a browse button. So let's have a look at what this browse button does. This opens up a range of different audiencing options that I have available. So I can audience to campuses, roles, houses, year levels, and classes and groups. If I go into classes and groups, it gives me a list of my classes, so I can easily target my particular class pages and send that news to those class pages. I can also target bigger groups. So if I want to go to a whole campus, I can target the whole senior school, for example. If I want to include parents as well, I just tick the box now. Give me the parents in senior, or teachers in senior as well. So I can easily bring in those additional users. Now, if I want to create something more complex, so in our old system, you used to be able to create an audience which was a combination of two roles and a campus. So you could do things like parents of middle school, for example. You can still do that with the new system, but it's got more flexibility. You can do campus and house, for example, and send just to senior school of a particular house. So you've got new options there for how you audience and how you deliver that news. And so there's a whole range of different audiencing options and different combinations that you can create just using this little picker here. Of course, we have power users out there that are not going to use the picker, and they just want to search quickly for things. So look how quickly I can sort of search to send this to all of the English pages, very easily add it to class B. I can also go to particular students and add all of those options in as well. So I can target individuals, I can target groups, classes, I can target houses, campuses, the whole range is there. And of course, in addition, those modifiers that allow me to do parents or teachers as well are all available. This, of course, as we know, will audience, and only the people in these areas will get that in their news feed, and of course will only get the notification. No one else will see this news. Topics is here, so you can assign the topics, but we've now extended topics to be multi, so you can actually put multiple topics in there. So you could have a general and an academic. It's up to you how you do your topics, but they now work more like tags than categories, so you can add multiple of those to give you more targeting of that news. I should note that if you are posting from a class page in a group, in this case I'm going to post from a group, when I click create news from this group, it's automatically going to target that audience. So I don't need to do any extra work to set up the audience. It will automatically determine that you're posting that news from this group, you want to target that group. So it'll create that news item and specify it for that particular group. The other thing that I should note is that while I'm here, this news is going to publish directly to the class page. It's worked out that I have write access to Archery, so I don't need to go through moderation to post this news. I can just press publish news now, and this will go directly to the Archery page with no further work required. But if I wanted to add in a wider audience and target middle school, for example, that's going to now mean that this article will require moderation. So the button updates to reflect that I need now to get moderation before I can post to that audience. So this will go to the moderator, who will then be able to approve that article and say, yes, this is appropriate for that particular audience, and allow that article to go through to that audience. So you can see that you're able to maintain that same functionality that you had previously in version 18, where you were able to have teachers posting to their class pages without any moderation, but also combined with the ability to post to a wider audience and have that moderation workflow all unified into the one news platform. So it's pretty powerful. Okay. One thing that you would have noticed while I was going is that as I'm typing here, we're actually saving a draft. So no longer will you actually ever lose an article. Now, this was a pet peeve of mine. I spent hours writing release notes every few weeks that go out via the help system. And of course, I'd inevitably get interrupted while I was doing that. I'd come back an hour or two later and I'd lost my session. I'd press post and I'd lose the article. Certainly, I share your pain. I'm sure it's happened to many of you before, and it was something we definitely wanted to fix up with this release. So now when you're using the new system, it's automatically going to draft and save, so you'll never lose those drafts ever again. And if you do happen to log out and, lose your place, or, you close your tabs or something like that, and you want to come back and find that draft, you can come back into this Created by Me section and find those drafts at any time. So all the articles you've created that are sitting in drafts are all sitting there waiting for you to come back and resume at any time. I've also got some article here that's awaiting moderation, so I can see that I've got this article waiting for a moderator to come through and approve. Now let's just quickly log in as that moderator and approve that article. Now I've set up Alison Chan as a moderator in the system, and she's going to be moderating this news article today. So first thing to notice is that an article has been submitted, ready for moderation is a notification that gets sent. It also appears here as a chiclet saying that there's articles requiring moderation. So there's plenty of notification that a moderator needs to undertake some reviews here. When I come in and have a look at the article, I can read it, make sure I'm okay, and then I've got the ability to approve or reject. If I reject, I can send it back with a bit of a blurb on why I'm rejecting it, so it's not just a cold-hearted rejection. It can have some, you need to improve this article, or this isn't the appropriate audience. If I'm just happy with the article, I click approve, and that's now published and goes through to the audience, ready for them to see, and all the news has been processed. So quite simple, straightforward. Our vision was that you'd probably have, 4 or 5 different moderators in the school. Obviously, they'd be excellent at English, but they'd also perhaps be familiar with the marketing and style of the school, and they would control those global audiences so that you can set who is the audience. Now, one thing that we have unfortunately lost was previously you did get the ability to moderate on a campus. As of 18.1, we no longer have the ability to moderate for an individual campus. You only moderate for all the audiences. It was a little too complicated to be able to give you control over what audiences a moderator could moderate. So for the time being, we're just going with a very simple, you're either a moderator or you're not, and you can moderate for all the audiences, house, year level, campus, and role. All those audiences will be moderated by the moderators that you define within the system. Now, one thing, while I'm looking at this news list here, and all my news is coming through, if I see an article that I'm interested in and I want to come back to and read later, I can now star that article. This is something we got as feedback from our parents, actually. When we surveyed parents, they said that often they don't have time to read the article. So the Save for Later feature allows them to star that article and come back to it. So they can, it's like bookmarking that article, and they then have a list of all the articles that they've saved, so they can come back and keep a shorthand list. So even after that article's perhaps moved off the front page or expired, it'll still appear in their My Save News, so they can come back and review that at a time that's more appropriate to them. So just a feature that our parents asked for, that we thought we'd put in. And with that functionality, we're looking at more stuff around that space, likes, those types of things are also going to be something that we add in the future. But that's just the beginning of one nice to have that we thought we'd add for this 18.1 release. There's a few things we're going to be cleaning up before the final beta is released. Meta information about the news, perhaps read counts, some bits and pieces. We've got some extra information that we're going to show, who the audience is, that type of stuff, just to make sure that it's clear where this news is, what it's for, and make sure that everyone understands that. So there's a few little cleanups that we need to do, but by and large, the new system is pretty ready to go, and all the workflows should be working and well tested and ready for you to try out. So obviously there's a bit of policy change here, but from the everyday teacher's perspective, they should just use news just as they always have. Posting to their class page will work just as it always has, and the only difference being that news will now appear in the feed of the students and the teacher as well. Added upside, teachers posting to their class pages can now also include the parents. So if they want to make that news item go to the parents of the students, they can tick that option on, and it will also bring the parents into that article. So they've got a quick way to communicate to parents from their class as well. All right, let's move on. So now we're going to have a look at the LMS side of things. We're going to go into a few features that have been developed in the LMS. Let's start with the course-wide markbook. The course-wide markbook was basically an idea we had that we wanted to give better oversight of how a course was being assessed while it was going. We tried to do this within the existing markbook, but it didn't really work, and it had to deal with too many things because it had to deal with both class assessments and also course assessments. So this new markbook is dedicated just to course assessments. And if I bring up the course-wide markbook, it's available through the 3-dot option on a course. And we're imagining that this would be designed for your heads of faculty or your curriculum people who are trying to look over how that course is being assessed and how well we're going. So I bring up the course-wide markbook for Year 9 English. and it shows me all of the classes that have been assessed against the course so far this year. I can see it grouped by classes, and I can see all the students in the classes. I can see the class averages. I can see the overall averages, so how well we're progressing through those assessment tasks. In addition, it has this triangle that also shows you whether the mark's been published or not. One of the feedbacks that we got from heads of faculty was, I don't know whether my teachers have actually published the mark, so this gives you insight into whether those marks have actually been published, not just put in into the system, but also published and visible to the students. So you can easily quickly see via that little corner tab if this mark is actually available to the student. Of course, it has all the filtering options as well, so if you're just interested in the weighted assessments, you can apply those filters and it strips it down just to those weighted assessment types. There's a few nice things here that will probably make their way into the class markbook as well. Obviously, you can see the new addition of grouping by unit is quite a nice feature. It easily identifies which assessments are part of what units. So expect to see some stuff like that make their way back into the class markbook as well. But this is really designed particularly for the heads of faculty who are wanting to do perhaps check up on whether all the marks have been published, if there's any students that haven't been assessed yet, perhaps your faculty does cohort marking, and this would be a great entry point for doing cohort level marking. So rather than having to go to each class, you can just go through this markbook and mark the whole cohort from this markbook and track which students you had and hadn't marked. All right, let's move on to a few other bits and pieces within the assessments area. Now, while I'm in courses, obviously one of the big new features for this is our partnership with Atlas Rubicon, which has been going on for quite some time now, but we're finally starting to see the fruits of that partnership. So while we're talking about courses, let's have a look at the new Atlas Rubicon importer. We recognised, many teachers were spending a lot of time documenting their curriculum planning in Atlas Rubicon, and this information would be incredibly useful for the purpose of building a course. So we added the ability to use that information, and now in Schoolbox, when you go and click the import from Atlas, you'll see a list of courses, and I'm going to filter this list just to year 10 here, and just have a look at the year 10 courses that are available. I'm going to select Australian History 2 as what I want to import. I'm going to use this plan, and this is going to set up the structure. Now, it's gone into Atlas and seen that these units are available, and I can actually look inside these units and have a look at the assessments that are available in here. I'm just going to turn a few off because I don't want to go through and set all of these up. Some of these have got names on them, some of them don't. I'm going to copy this name into here. So let's just set this name up. And we'll keep going and turning on and off things as we go. We can obviously enable what we want to import. Some things we don't, some things we do. It's up to you. But at the end, once you've done all of this, you'll get a full course import. Now, if I leave some of these on and some of the assessments don't have names, it's going to obviously highlight that to me and say you need to provide names on these assessments. Schoolbox requires names. Inside Atlas, they're not required. And once I've done that, I just click use this import. Now we get to where we're going to import this to. I'm just going to select the faculty. Now, faculty I'm going to import this to is Humanities. I click use this folder and click import. So what I've done now is I've specified the units that I want to import, the course, where I want to place the course, and the names of the assessments that I'm going to be importing at the same time. You can see now in my course list I have an area called Australian History 2 that has the units that I just imported from Atlas all set up, ready to go. It's created a page for that, so I can go and visit that page and it's all ready to go. It's got all of the material on there. If I just view that home page, it's all ready to start loading with all of that content and material that teachers want to put on their course pages. If I look at a particular unit page here, similar, but in this particular case, it's actually set up the course criteria already, and you can see here the codes have been attached. So if I actually look at that area and have a look and see, I can see that this capability has been set up. There's the course code, curriculum code that has been linked to. So the curriculum code's been attached, the capabilities have been inserted. It's all set up, ready to use. If I look at this assessment item that's been created as well, you'll see that although the full rubric hasn't been created yet, the beginnings of a rubric have been set up. So, it's indicated what indicators are being used, what capabilities are being used. So it's starting to build up that rubric. It's not the full, there's no descriptors or anything in Atlas, but it gives you the starting point to start writing your descriptors. So you can see the Atlas Rubicon is a good starting point. It's not going to provide a whole course to you. It's obviously not designed for that. It's designed for planning a curriculum. But there are important pieces of that Atlas curriculum that are useful. And so by importing it, we quickly get that information into Schoolbox and get teachers started. So it just gives them the structure by which they can then fill in the details. It sort of scaffolds that course building process nicely for them. So yeah, that's the Atlas importer feature.
Okay, let's have a look now at I'm going to log out and log in as a different teacher and have a look at how we're doing some new features with rubrics. So I'm going to log in as Jack Coles here and go into a demo class page, maybe 2. And in here I've got a final assessment task set up. Just as an example to show you how our new rubric features are working. Now, obviously all I'm a massive fan of rubrics as an assessment tool, so we're continually, putting more effort and work into making our rubrics the best possible they could be. We don't want to and what we found is that, I guess with teachers, they want to use rubrics as well, but they have many different ways of using rubrics. There's not one, I guess, right way to how you use a rubric. And I guess that was a bit surprising to us. We thought there'd be one right way, but there's not. There's lots of different ways to use rubrics, and we didn't want our technology to get in the way of a teacher using their rubrics. So we wanted to make sure that it didn't matter how you were using your rubrics, but you could use them as a tool in Schoolbox. Now, a lot of these features have come from the IB curriculum. However, we believe that they're going to help a lot with schools in Tasmania and Queensland, where you have large amounts of levels to deal with. So these features should help not just for IB, but also for other areas where you're perhaps marking to a 15-point scale or something similar to that. Now, the first feature I'm going to demonstrate is mark per capability. Now, this was previously existing, but we've now enhanced this functionality. The enhancements allow you to actually set the maximum points for that particular capability. So you can see here this capability and indicator is actually just out of 4. That's pretty straightforward. But in this case, there's 2 capabilities and they add to 8. But perhaps I want that to be out of 4 as well. So here, where this particular capability might be out of something or something different, we can actually assign what we want that capability to be out of. So we can override what the rubric is telling us. Now, this is particularly important for IB, where you're perhaps marking criteria and your criteria out of 8 points. So you're able to set those 8 points as what you're going to mark that criteria out. And then it doesn't really matter what points you give in your rubric. You're always going to be marking to an 8-point scale on the capability. So it's really useful for that criteria. Now, that feature obviously is not alone. We've also added this ability to use mark range. Now, use mark range is there for users that have perhaps got lots of marking scale but don't want lots of descriptors. Okay, so you might have a situation where you have 15-point scale but you only have 5 descriptors. You don't want to go and have to put in the same descriptor 5 times and copy and paste it into all those scales, but you still want to have that ability to mark down to the 15-point scale. You don't want to lose that, I guess, that level of detail. So using mark range
allows you to use a greater range of points and then select which point value you're going to assign for the students. Let's just have a quick look at this. I'm going to create 15 and we'll make this 10, we'll make this 8 and this 4. Okay, now I've created a vast range of numbers. Now what it's going to do is automatically give me a drop down that gives me the options between 15 and 10, and then 10 and 8, and then 8, then 4, then 4, then 0. So let's have a look at what that looks like when I go and assess this rubric. So if I now go and assess a rubric for a particular student, now when I get to these capabilities, you'll see that they've got a range, and I'm able to select an option from the range. So you've got a wide variety of options, and that's going to affect the mark that I'm giving here. You know, so you can see that there's a lot more sort of fidelity in this rubric now. Even though I've only got 5 levels, I've now got more fidelity to give more detailed information and then infer a better capability mark. Or an overall mark if that's how you prefer to mark. Of course, if you don't have ranges, that's fine as well. It'll just work as per usual. It will automatically detect when the ranges exist and when it needs to provide them. So some great new flexibility there for the rubric. So if you've got some complicated rubrics, perhaps you've been copying and pasting your descriptors, perhaps you've been doing all sorts of workarounds for IB, this really should go a long way to making sure that you can get your IB rubrics or your Queensland rubrics to be much more concise, much more easier to interpret, but still providing very rich feedback and high-level data for analytics, which of course is the key points of a rubric for us. So we're pretty excited about opening up these new features. We'd be interested to hear your feedback. We did a lot of research to find out how people were using rubrics and what they look like, but we'd be interested to see whether we got it on point now with these changes. We're really interested to see whether these are actually what you needed and how you use these in the real world. Rubrics are one of those things that everyone's got a different idea, so it is very hard for us to build one system that suits every person, but we're really interested to see how well this suits your particular style of rubric. There is a big forum thread in there, so please get online in our forums and post any feedback you have on this new rubrics feature. All right, so we're pretty much at the end of our feature walkthrough today. Sorry I couldn't go through the Atlas Rubicon importer. Not sure why that wasn't working. Probably didn't get the connection to the third-party system properly set up. But if you've got any questions or feedback that you would like to give, please put it into the channel now. We'll go through a few questions that have been asked while I've been going. So let's get started. So firstly, we have a question from Lisa. Can you choose to audience by year level in news? Yes, of course. In the news system, just to go back to what the audience is, you have the ability to audience by year level. You have the ability to audience by house. So, you know, a lot of people were previously creating year level groups. They were creating houses as groups. But this new functionality allows you to bypass that. You might not need to create all those groups anymore for year levels, for houses. You could just post directly to that audience straight through here. So you might save yourself a lot of group management headache by just using this new audiencing. Okay, Blake asks, obviously there needs to be a news component on a page for it to come up, or does just being a group page suffice? Yeah, so Blake, you can post to a group even if it doesn't have a news component on that page. Now, because we've now merged the news feed into one big super news system, you don't necessarily need the component on the home page at all. You can just have people go to the news page and see all their news in the one place. They don't actually need to come to the home page to see the news anymore. Just by posting news to a group will allow people to see that news in their news feed, on the dashboard, in the news feature, or if you've got the component, it will be filtered just to news for that that page. So you've got different options there. We kept all of the old functionality, but of course there's new options and new opportunities available where you may not require a component on the home page at all. You can just simply have people read their news via the central news feed. Okay, James asks, how does the new news system interact with Digistorm app notification? Is it all or nothing for nothing notification for news items? Yes, James, it is. The notification system is all the same, so news will still use the same notification system. The notifications will go to those who are audienced to receive that news. There is no, I guess, differentiation of notification per audience type at the moment. If that's something that people are interested in, we're willing to have a look at it. But for the moment, it is an all or nothing with the news items. So if you receive a notification, you can receive that notification for any news item that's posted. There is no subset of that. And James also asks, assuming you're not creating the news from the class or group page, if you create news and send it to multiple recipients, will news appear on the dashboard? Yes, of course. If you create news on the class page, it will still appear on the dashboard. Or if you create it from the central news system and just to a class, it'll appear on the class as well. So the idea has sort of merged. You can post to the class page, but it will appear on the dashboard. You can post to the from the central news, and it will appear on the class page. So vice versa. It goes both ways. Darren asks, can the moderator see who the audience is and change if it's wrong? Yes, the moderator can preview the audience and they can obviously change it. So yes, they will be able to alter the audience. The moderator has full moderation control, so they can modify the article, change the the content, the audience, the topics. They've got full control of what they do to that article before they approve it. So they can do any amendments they like before they actually approve it. Okay, next question. Blake asks, the news moderation, it didn't show where it was being sent. Shouldn't this be part of the moderation, making sure it goes to the right campus? Yep, Blake, I tend to agree. I think I mentioned that there was a few cleanups that we needed to do on the news detail screen, just to give some more insight into the audience about that article. I really think it's important that you can see that on the article detail screen. So we'll likely make sure that that's included before this release goes live, so that you'll be able to see who the article's for. Not just as a moderator, but also as a reader. It's sort of useful to know, well, was this article for just everyone, or was it just for me because I'm in the cricket team? So I think it is important for everyone to be able to see who was the audience for this article, so they know how relevant it is to them and whether that audiencing is relevant to them. Hal asks, is RSS feed still available? Yes, the RSS feed's still available. You can get the RSS feed just as you always did. We have an RSS feed for both a homepage, so you can get just a specific feed for a particular group, and we also have a global feed as well. Of course, with the RSS feed, note that it is tied to a user. So the articles that appear in that RSS feed will be based on the user who got the RSS link. So what we always recommend here, if you're making an RSS feed for your public website or your dashboard, you make a generic user in the system, and then you get the RSS feed for that generic user. Some schools have got like a role or an audience that they have for their public website, and so you might have a role that is public website. So when you select that public website role, it'll appear on that public website's feed and go out to the public website. So you can still use the RSS feed much the same way as you were doing before to drive your digital signage or your website, but just be aware you may need to tweak your audiencing and just have a look at how that's being delivered, just to make sure that you're not leaking any internal news out to that feed. Okay, Joe asks, is the news topic required? I should note, you might have noticed that on this form we have little stars to indicate what fields are required. An audience is required, a publish date is required, but topics is not a required field. So topics can be left blank. In fact, we don't even display the topic on the homepage component. So it's probably sort of irrelevant in the context of a homepage. We might look at improving that in the future, but for the time being, topics are really an optional thing that you can set. So you can choose, you know, none, one, or many topics to assign to your article. Okay. The doctor. Do homepage groups still show up in this sidebar? It's a good question. So homepage groups don't show up in the sidebar. So if you have a group that doesn't have a homepage, you'll no longer get a link to that in the left-hand side navigation. Now this is important because it allows you to post articles to groups that perhaps don't exist. So they don't have a homepage, they don't appear in people's left-hand navigation, so people don't necessarily know that they're part of the group, but you can still audience to the group. So you get this nice little sort of edge case where you can create perhaps a Year 9 group. Bad example because we've got Year 9 audiencing, but let's say you might create a drama group, for example, but not create a homepage. You just want to send news to drama. So by doing that, you can now send news to drama, everyone that's in drama, but they won't get a link to a page, so they're never having to go to another page to find that news. It's all just coming through to the drama students in their feed. Okay, next up, Elizabeth asks, can you attach a file to news items such as a doc or PDF? It's a good question. So currently, if you use the body text up here, you've got the ability to embed images, video, and other things. But if you use the link option here, and you can create a link or browse for a file. And this allows you to pull up the browse window and browse for a particular file in the system and select that particular file. So you can browse, my computer's running slow, you can browse for those files there and do it like you always did. We probably will add the ability to attach files as a Dropbox in the future. That is one of the things that we've sort of discussed, that it would be nice to have. At the moment, one of the things that you can do is attach a feature image. Most likely this will open up into just a drop zone which you can drop anything into. So that'll be multiple images, it'll be files, it'll be anything you want to drop into and attach to that news, and it will automatically create a list of all the things you've attached, whether it be an image gallery or a list of files, and you'll be able to select your feature image from that list as well. So that's probably coming in the future to handle those cases. But for now, if you want to attach a document, just use the link feature to attach and press the browse button to locate that file on your computer. Okay, so if you pick a year level, this is a question from Unknown, don't know who this is from. So if you pick a year level for news, will it go to students only by default? If you want parents of those students, you need to tick the parents as well. Can you send to parents only? So currently you can't send to well, actually you can. So if I audience, for example, Year 9, and I select Parents of Student, that is going to Year 9 parents only. So that's how you target to the parents of Year 9 only. Okay, does that answer that question? So obviously through the browse, it's probably not as easy as that, but from here, it is quite simple to do it using this more advanced search option. So just use the search, select the Parents of Students Only option, and that will become your target audience. Okay, where am I up to? So, Awi asks, can a moderator of a news article approve it for, say, a class page but not school news? It's a good question. So originally when we started this project, we did have moderation for class pages, but we found that it was too onerous on our users to have moderation while they're just posting to their class pages. You know, no one's really wanting to sit there and moderate every news article that's posted to a class page. So we took that out and allowed the teachers to post directly to their class pages. So there is no way directly for a moderator to approve news just to a class page. They can only approve news that's going to the wider audiences, year levels, campuses, houses. If it's going to a class page, it's going to skip the moderation process altogether. And that was really just because we didn't want that onerous task. You know, we have thousands of news articles posted every week. We didn't want that onerous task of having to approve thousands of news articles to go on someone. And imagine how frustrating it would be for a teacher if you just wanted to post something to your class and you had to wait for a moderator to approve it. So we haven't got a workflow for moderation down at the class level. We might look at adding it in optionally later down the track, but that would be an opt-in. So it would be an opt-in to say this page allows news to be posted, but it will be moderated by the owner of the page. So that's likely to come as an opt-in down the track. But at this stage, there is no moderation on page news. Okay, Mary Lou asks, in news, can moderators edit without sending back to the author before hitting the publish button? Okay, so this is a good question. In news, the moderators can edit and they can change it and all of that, so they can do what they like and they can then reject it. So they can modify, reject, approve, whatever process they want to take. They have full access to that news article. So if it's just a simple typo, they just go in, change the typo, and then just press publish, and away it goes. So the idea is to get it out as quickly as possible. So for most moderators, they're just going to tweak the article and then press approve. Okay, Elizabeth asks, news, can users post comments on the news item? Great question. It is something that we did flag as one of our key features. Unfortunately, we've run out of time in this release to get that feature, but do expect that coming soon. In fact, it does open up a whole nother conversation, which I think is worth thinking about, is, well, what is the difference between news and a blog? At the moment, the difference between news and a blog is the fact that blogs have comments and news doesn't. But perhaps when we add comments to news, the blog can be made redundant and news replaces the blog feature as well. So that was something that we did discuss, that ultimately news would have the option to allow comments, but not quite ready just yet, but expect it very soon. Okay, so a question, if a moderator changes and approves an article, does it show as published by the original author or the moderator? So if a moderator makes any changes, currently it still belongs to the original author. So the original author still owns the article even after it has been modified by a moderator. So it'll still say published by the original author. It does record that the moderator had an effect on it, but doesn't necessarily have any version control or history or log currently. So you can't see necessarily what those changes were. All we know is that the moderator approved that article and it's still owned by that original author. Okay, Saskia asks, how will different news articles posted on various places, year level, groups, classes, appear on the digest that gets delivered as an email? Will those articles still appear at the bottom of the digest, or will they now merge in with all the articles that were posted from the central news? Good question. So all of the news will be merged together into one feed on the digest. So all the articles will be one feed on that digest. So expect them all to be merged into one single feed. Simon asks, any improvement to featured images? No, currently no changes to featured images. It's basically just the same at the moment. Expect to see down the track image gallery functionality. So expect to see us add image galleries into the feature image. That's something we've highlighted we'd like to do. And we might have a look at then selecting from your image gallery which will be featured and stuff like that. So there will be some changes, but by and large the featured images will just stay the same. We're also experimenting with some new layouts with how we can use the featured images in better ways, perhaps featuring them more, making them bigger. So expect to see some perhaps new layouts and improved layouts for news in general. Now we have an overall feed. We're going to start focusing on how we present that feed of news to a user to make sure we're maximising engagement. And of course, bringing up the feature images will be part of that engagement piece as well. All right, that I think wraps up my questions on news, and I'm just going to go into some rubric questions. Not too many rubric questions. So Ohad asks, is it possible to use decimal numbers instead of whole numbers in the mark range in the rubric section? It's a good question, good technical question for me. No, it's not possible to use decimal numbers in the mark range. It only goes by whole numbers in the mark range. So it's not able to do subparts of numbers. It only goes in order, in whole number increments. So just be aware of that when using it. If you do need decimals, I would recommend blowing up your range, adding a 0 to the entire range, and then you'll still get, you know, you'll just move the decimal point 1 across and you'll still get the same result. But yeah, currently the drop-down only supports whole numbers. Question from Luke. With the new capabilities of rubrics, is it still just one overall mark that syncs across from the sys, synergetic in our case? Yes, Luke, unfortunately, we haven't improved the ability to sync the results into synergetic with this release, but as you can see, there are some improvements here that is going to help us do that. So there's a couple of things here that I'm hoping will improve our ability to sync marks into the learning areas in Synergetic. Firstly, the addition of assessment curriculum codes onto indicators and capabilities will perhaps form a way for us to link those learning areas in Synergetic to the learning areas in Schoolbox. And then secondly, now that you've got more freedom on the mark per capability, you'll be able to have a bit more discretion with what we synchronize back to Synergetic. So likely you'll see some more work in that space. This is just sort of the groundwork at this stage. There's still more work to be done to get that data flowing better. Adina asked, just confirming that the course-wide markbook is different to the markbook on the class page. So there are now 2 markbooks, one for the cohort and one just for the individual class. Yeah, that's correct, Adina. There is a markbook for the class, which was just showing the class's assessments. It also shows the assessments that are just for that class. It shows both course assessments and class assessments in that class markbook. The course markbook is a specialised version that just shows assessments in the course that have been assessed. Now, to understand the difference of that, if a teacher was to go and create an assessment just in their classroom, it wouldn't show on the course level markbook. So you need to be aware that the course markbook just shows assessments that are in the course. Is there any changes to the class markbook in this version? No, we haven't made any improvements. We might simplify the class markbook because it was trying to do some of the stuff that we did in the course markbook. So we might look to simplify the class markbook a little bit now that we can do things in the course markbook that are that course specific. We can take some of the functionality out of the class markbook that was causing some confusion. So that might be simplified in the future. Catherine asks, can anyone access the course markbook? It's a good question. I don't think I answered that. Yes, anyone can access the course markbook. It's available from the courses screen. So any teacher or staff member can access that course markbook. So when you turn that on, obviously think about that before you turn that feature on. It does, I guess, bring up to the front some additional information about that course and its assessment. Nothing that hasn't already been shown through the learning analytics, but perhaps it's a bit more specific than the learning analytics. So just be aware of that it is available to all staff. Okay, when adding users to Schoolbox Help via the Schoolbox Help provisioning, will users still receive an email letting them know they have access and their login details? Good question, Adina. Yes, it's the same process. It'll still set up their account. I have to double check how the email's been delivered, but yes, I believe the email should still be sent, but we'll have to look into how that's being sent and where from. So you might have to leave that one with me just to double check what we're doing with that. But I'm pretty sure that we'll have to communicate something to the users, but just be aware that their login and their password should be fairly straightforward. It should be just their help account, their email address. Tarek asks, has the 18.1 release fixed the issue of pastoral care writing back the records to Synergetic? Yes, there's been some work on writing back records to Synergetic. The issue there was actually related to changes with the Synergetic 69 or 89 update, the one that changed the database schema. There's been some changes now in Schoolbox that should fix most of those issues. The only area that we're still having a little bit of trouble is around Docman and storing attachments related to pastoral records. Most of those issues should be resolved now, but if you're still having issues, please contact support and they'll look into them for you. Jane asks, can the Schoolbox help provisioning be included in the normal UPS? So just so you're aware, the process will be that the UPS will create the accounts inside Schoolbox, and then the help provisioning will be a separate process. They're not attached at the moment. If we find that it's worth attaching them, we might attach them so that they trigger each other, but at the moment they are separate processes. Just allows you to audit it separately, but we might look at attaching them together in the future, but let us know how you go with them. But for the time being, they are separate processes. So the UPS will run independently of help provisioning, and you'll need to run help provisioning manually once your account's provisioned. Blake asks, when will the locking down of pages come? Likely during the beta. I'm hoping to get that in during the beta. Expect to see that. Just for those people that don't know what the locking down of the pages is, there's been some discussion in the forum about a feature that we've built that provides some read-only modes to the pages. The idea being that for a lot of users on touchscreens, navigating the screen inevitably results in moving components around and editing the screen in ways they didn't expect or didn't want to. So we've been trialing a new feature that allows us to basically turn modify on and off on the page with a flick of a switch, and also make it a bit harder to drag and drop components around the screen when you're using a touchscreen. So we're trialing those out on some tablets at the moment. They're not in the beta release at the moment, but with a bit of luck they'll make the beta as well in the next few weeks. So expect to see some improvements in that space as well, at the very least, just to make it a bit harder to drag and drop components around the screen. All right. Oh no, I've got a couple more questions. Brett asks, can you post news based on profile? Not entirely sure what you mean by profile, but you can post news to individual users, so you can do it based on a person. Based on who you are, I'm guessing you're saying who can post news. Just to go over that just quickly. If you've turned on the option in the admin system to allow all staff to post news, all staff will be able to post news to all audiences. If that's not turned on, staff will only be able to post news to groups that they have write access to. So if you've got write access to a group, you can post news to it. But other than that, you won't be able to post news to any other audiences. Now, obviously, moderators have special access. They can always post news to all audiences. So those groups will be always able to post their news. Another question from Jane. Does the original author appear for future published posts that have been moderated in the meantime? Currently moderator name shows. Yes, so I expect that to be cleaned up. So when an article is the original author's name will appear when the article is published by a moderator, so it'll still appear as if it came from the original author. All right, last question. Last question. All right, no more. So Luke asks, will there be an ability to show the students by mark rank instead of by class alphabetical in the course markbook? So sort order is something that the markbook desperately needs. We will look into sort order in the future, but currently you can't sort the markbook. It is sorted by alphabetical order, and that's fixed at the moment. But yeah, hopefully in the future we can add some sort ordering to it. Okay, so that about wraps up the session. Thank you very much for attending and all your questions. Great questions, by the way. It's always great to have everyone's engagement in these releases. As I said, the beta release should be coming out tomorrow, be available for testing in your development service tomorrow, so be ready for that. In terms of getting the upgrade, it will be about a month before that happens, so don't worry about that. We'll announce that closer to the date and let you know what the process will be. But for those that are unfamiliar, the general process is you let us know the date that you want to upgrade and we'll just flick your server over to the new version. This upgrade shouldn't take too long to undertake. All we're doing is migrating the news, so the news migration should be fairly quick. So I expect this to be minimal downtime, minimal impact upgrade, so it should be a fairly quick and painless upgrade for most schools. Probably something you can do just during the day with 10 minutes of downtime. In terms of that's about it, I think. There's nothing really else I need to add. If you do have any problems, contact support. They're always there. If you need any additional support, our account managers are available. If you need to help rolling out change or policy, please get in contact with our account managers. They can talk you through perhaps services that we have available now for helping with policy change. So if there are things that you're looking to undertake or projects or in particular rubrics and how you use rubrics to the best within your school, we're more than happy to help out with that. So we're looking forward to this update and we hope you are too. I'll be speaking to you shortly. One last thing, a reminder, we're running out of early bird tickets on our meetup. So please, if you're looking to get hold of those early bird tickets, get your bookings in now. I expect they'll be running out in the next few days. So please put your bookings in. If you're not quite ready yet, there'll be still plenty of tickets available after the early birds, but they'll be a bit more expensive. So please make sure you get those bookings in. I know that over summer and the back to school period, it's going to be pretty hectic, so it'd be nice to get all that sorted before we go on holidays. Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you all next time.